What is your name and your profession?
Cher Caldwell, English teacher.
Why did you decide and agree to do this interview?
Mainly because it's a learning opportunity for my students. Our theme for the year is to be an upstander, and this is my opportunity to be an upstander.
What was your childhood dream?
That's a good question. I remember most of my life, all I really wanted to do was grow up, get married, and have children. That's pretty much what it was. And I remember as a senior in high school writing that in one of the assignments that my English teacher gave us about our future, to plan our future. I mean, I was raised with a stay-at-home mom, so I thought I wanted to be just like her. My parents actually had to make me do it. They offered to pay for either a wedding or pay for college, and college was more expensive. So my fiance was like, college. That's what we did. Turned out to pay off very well.
What was your childhood like growing up? Can you describe it, please?
I was born in 1972. I lived in Alpharetta, Georgia. And it was pretty much rural at the time. It's completely different now. It was primarily, from what I remember, chicken farming. I remember if we wanted to go out to eat, there was one restaurant, and it was Dairy Queen. And if we wanted anything else, we would have to go out of town to eat. So pretty simple. We weren't poor, but we weren't middle class, I don't think. Some of my favorite meals still today are cheap meals that we could afford. I remember one time I was starving, and my mother was making us baked potatoes in the oven, and she was making us baked beans with hot dogs cut up inside. And I probably still, to this day, by the time it got made, it was like the best tasting meal I can remember because I was so hungry. But, so no air conditioning, but it didn't seem to bother us. We played outside from sun up to sundown, and we pretty much had the run of the neighborhood. It was pretty innocent kind of generation. Rode big wheels until we flattened one of the wheels from breaking it too hard.
If you had to choose one, what was your absolute worst experience? The one that you would say had the most effect on you and kind of made you like who you are?
Okay, so I think here's why that's hard to answer. Growing up, everything that I witnessed or that I experienced seemed normal. When I moved to New York. It wasn't New York City, it was Tonawanda, New York, close to Buffalo and the Canadian border, and the town was very similar to this area. You could, drive 15 minutes and be in the country, or you could drive the opposite direction 15 minutes and be in a major city like Cincinnati. When I went back to visit my hometown, where I was born and raised in Georgia, I went to my friend's house to play, and her father came in and asked if I had any black people at my school. And I remember saying yeah. And he said, well, are you friends with any of them? And I said, yeah. And he said, he used the N-word and said inloader. So you're looking at a fourth grader staring up into the eyes of an adult man who I feared. I remember when he said that to me, thinking, I'll tell you immediately what went through my head. I was thinking, I'm telling my mom on you, because I know that's a bad word, and I can't believe you just said that, and wait till I tell my mom. I guess that was probably my first realization that adults didn't know everything and that adults weren't perfect. Because up to that point, I probably thought they were. Well, I was probably fourth grade. I won't say that's the worst thing, but that's my first realization.
How did that message of what he said travel with you?
I think again, I just kind of went, as soon as I left, I never went back to his house. So I don't even think I actually told my mom. I think I just kind of went on with my life, and when I look back, I can connect dots of incidents that happened that kind of formed who I am today. But I did even then have a sense of right and wrong, and knowing that I wanted to do what was right. My mother always told me that I was an underdog protector, that I was, would even if it meant harm to me, I was going to defend my friends if I felt like they were, under attack or whatever. So I've always had a very strong sense of fixing the wrongs. If I felt like something was wrong, I was going to do whatever I needed to do to fix it.
If there was one thing you could change in your past, what would it be and why?
I know that your past defines who you are, and I'm pretty happy with who I am. So there's not a lot that I would change. I would have spoken up sooner about what happened to me. Everything that is a part of my past is part of what made me who I am today. And I like who I am. So there were things that, that were out of my control that would be nice if they never occurred. But things that I had control over, mistakes are how you learn, and I like who I am. I asked you all to discuss courage and what does courage look like, or define courage. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I could tell that a lot of people were struggling with it, and they were just kind of like nonchalantly putting a definition down, and I wanted them to understand that courage is all around us, that we can see courage in a variety of ways. And so I decided to share a personal story, because from the very beginning of the year we were studying the Holocaust, and we had learned that personal testimony was much more impactful. So I decided to share a story about the children that I've raised, either through foster care or just helping other families out. And so I've raised many children. I have one by birth, but I claim many more. And I had said that in my own childhood, I experienced abuse. And because I know what that feels like, because I know what it's like to have someone trusted betray you, now that I'm an adult, I wanted to do what I could to make sure to help anyone in that situation as soon as I can.
Could you talk more about that by any chance?
The first time that I experienced abuse, I didn't even remember it in that way. To me, it was like I talked earlier, this is just kind of like a normal experience, and this one thing happened. And it wasn't until I was older that I realized that that was a violation of trust. And so when you're talking about an adult who is trusted by by your family, you always have the impression that they're trustworthy, and then they suddenly prove that they're not. I think at first you start to doubt. I doubted myself for a long time about, there were early signs, and I wasn't sure whether I was reading them right, and I kept thinking, I must be wrong. There's no way that that's really what they intended, because, who they are, and everyone loves them, and everyone trusts them, and so I must be wrong. And by the time that I realized that I wasn't wrong, well, then it changed from the doubting to no one will believe me. There's no way that I can tell, because no one will believe me. And I think that lasted for a long time. I know every night I would lay awake and think about, should I tell someone? I don't want anyone else to have to suffer through it. So, all right, so this is Miss Caldwell's life experience definition, my own personal definition of the difference between privacy and secret. So I've always taught my children early on, privacy are things that we're entitled to keep private And keeping them private doesn't hurt anyone. Secrets are hurtful. And if someone ever tries to convince you to keep a secret and you realize that keeping that secret can harm someone, then you don't keep the secret. So I think I have, as an adult, been very open, because in my personal experience in my childhood, I kept secrets because I was afraid no one would believe me. I've always tried to make it a point as an educator that if one of my students has experienced something, that they can come talk to me, that I would be someone who, even if I'm not qualified to help, I am someone who can find someone who is qualified to help. My experience from my past, like I said before, I've always been someone who tries to defend the underdog. I don't like to see injustice. And even as a child, what I might have perceived as injustice might not be considered what we're talking about today. But as far as helping others, I think it's always been a part of who I am. But I think there was a turning point as an adult. Let's put it this way. I mean, I'm on a teacher salary. I'm not rich by any means, but I have a house that had an extra room, and actually it had 2 extra rooms. And before I actually was trained and certified in foster care, one of my daughter's friends needed a place to go, a place to stay, and I had a room. So I offered the room, and things just kind of evolved from there. Within a year, I had 5 teenage girls living under my roof, all the same age, probably all of them 16 years old, and living under my roof in those 2 rooms, sharing them. So, you know, whatever I have, if it helps someone, I try to share it.
Do you have any advice for kids, teens, or even adults who went through what you went through as a kid, or are going through a similar experience?
So I guess this kind of goes with the distinction between privacy and secrecy. And I remember how terrified I was to tell someone. And I want to say, after I realized that what was happening was wrong, I want to say it was another 3 years before I said anything. I was almost an adult before I said anything. And none of my worst fears were realized. So if I could do it ever again, I would tell much sooner. It turned out that everyone believed me, that everyone had seen signs and had red flags, but at the same time, they were basically experiencing the same thing that I was. But, you know, maybe I'm wrong. That doesn't seem to be who that person is, and, you know, there's no way. You know, but I'm the only one that's sensing that. Everyone apparently was experiencing the same thing, and nobody talked about it. And once I came forward, everyone was like, God, I knew it, and I was completely supported. And so if there's anybody that is experiencing any form of abuse, I think the sooner you can get out of it, the better. And the sooner you say something, the better. And when you speak up, you are taking part of that. You're taking that power back. And it's the first step in healing. I think that it's important to know that there is life after abuse. And there is healing possible. But none of that starts until you tell someone. I guess what I would like to see is if they have any statistics on abuse in Northern Kentucky, so that it is more relevant to, you know, it's not just something that happened to me, and yeah, we know this bad thing happened to people, but do we really know the extent to which it happened?